It is Danny Kelly from The Ringer. You can follow Danny on X at Danny B. Kelly, also on Blue Sky, senior staff writer at The Ringer, fantasy football show, plus the Ringer NFL Draft Show. His weekly appearance is brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated by two diehard Huskies, Manny and Roger. They've been pouring the best local craft beer for the past 23 years. Makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodhisattva IPA, host of your other favorite beers. And tap room is open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. Sorry, hold on. Give me 1 second. Hold on. They're dirty. I got to get the blue light glasses on.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah.
I'm only going to do. They get dirty more often.
They do. They're like, they have stickier lenses or something like that. It's
that's the thing. Here we go. Hold on. It's the blue light show. We each wear our blue light glasses.
Yeah.
Because we're staring at computers all day long. and I'll be honest with you, since making doing this, wearing them more, the twitch is gone.
Is it?
Yeah, no more eye twitching.
That's great to hear.
How's your eye twitching going, huh?
It's still there a little bit. I would say it's like much less dramatic than it was before. And my eyes just feel less tired all day.
Less tired. How many hours a day, Danny, do you spend in front of a computer, would you say?
10 minimum. It's funny. There's like this joke that's like, yeah, I'm going to go home after looking at my medium screen. I'm going to go home and then watch my big screen while looking at my little screen. Yeah. It's like just looking at screens all day long.
We can't get out. We can't get away from it, can we?
No. But
they always say, hey, 1 hour before bed, don't look at a screen time. Really?
Oh, I've been reading at bedtime. I'm doing a good job. Good.
Well, what are we reading,
some changes
Danny?
in my life.
What are we reading?
Reading what's the name of it? I can't remember the name.
Must be a thriller.
It's about a KGB agent who was a spy for the US for a long time during the Cold War.
Look at you.
Author Ben McIntyre, he writes some really good stuff. He wrote Rogue Heroes, which is now a major show that's really good. He wrote Operation Mincemeat, which is a movie on Netflix. A couple other things. He's good.
All right.
Check him out.
All right, I'm in. All right, Danny. Book suggestions as well. If you in the comments, if you want a book suggestion for Danny and I, please right away and give us a
War and Peace.
Yeah, it's a light read,
just
Danny.
Bite off a chunk at a time. Yeah,
it's a light read. Hey, it's amazing when you get good offensive line play, your offense looks better.
I know. What a novel concept.
It's weird how that works out, Danny.
I saw some stat this week that was like basically in terms of yards before contact, the Seahawks, both Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet had it was like 29th or 30th in the NFL in yards before contact, and then in this last game it was like first or second. I'm trying to pull up the exact stat here. Here we go. This is from Fantasy Points. Seahawks running backs average yards before contact per attempt from weeks 1 to 13. Ken Walker ranked 53rd out of 57. Zach Charbonnet ranked 56 out of 57. On Sunday, week 14, top 5. Charbonnet 3.36 yards before contact per attempt. Top 5 in the NFL. It would have been top 5 full season. So huge difference. I don't know what they did exactly that was so different. I think they changed up. I saw some people talking about doing more gap stuff, more counter stuff. So that's
they're pulling their linemen more. They were getting their athletic linemen on the move and pulling a little bit more.
Yeah. So that's encouraging. Hopefully they can keep it going. Obviously Zach Charbonnet. I was talking to some friends, and this is not me comparing him as a player to Derrick Henry, but stylistically, I feel like both Derrick Henry and Charbonnet, they need a little bit of a runway. They're not going to break tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They're not going to be the type of guy that's just making somebody miss in a phone booth. But if you give them like a yard or two to get rumbling, like they are very hard to bring down, very, very good. So obviously Charbonnet's not on the level of Derrick Henry, but I think stylistically similar type runners where if you give them a little bit of runway, they can really get rumbling.
Hold on, I'm just marking this down. 21 minutes. Danny compares Charbonnet to Henry.
This is the life we live.
We'll put this up. We're going to put this up on our little 60-second clip later.
I hate you.
and none of it will include, I'm not saying he's Henry. I'm only going to put the part where you say Charbonnet reminds me of Henry.
This is like the Arrested Development joke that they spliced Job going, please don't say I shot that man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. God, great show.
Yeah,
great show. I have a buddy that's watched it 6 times. The whole 6 times has watched it over and over again. Just can't get Can't get enough of it.
So
Well,
good.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know people have well, what with the scheme that they were doing and polling, it fits the style more of Charbonnet. I don't know. I've seen plenty of runs where Walker, hits the hole hard, doesn't dance. I
Right.
think that part of the reason Walker's had to dance is because most times when he gets the handoff, there's 3 people in the backfield.
Yards before contact per attempt, 53rd out of 57. He's not getting any room to run. And it's
Yeah.
like a miracle he's done as well as he has done this year, I think. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe like in a perfect world, they have both guys running a little bit more, like instead of just leaning purely on Walker, give defenses a kind of a change up and get both those guys, more opportunities to rest, have them fresher. Obviously, Walker's hurt now. It doesn't even sound like he might not come back this week.
I don't like what I heard on Monday, where he's like, we'll know he's going to get some X-rays more on his calf, and we'll know in 24, 48 hours. Well, I don't like X-rays and all that. I don't like that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound awesome.
No.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, this is the reason that you go out and draft Charbonnet in the second round. Hopefully, you can get him in, and the run game doesn't suffer. In fact, it obviously looked a lot better in this last game. So that's the reason that you draft a guy like that, is so you can weather the storm of injuries throughout a season.
Yeah, here's the deal with I think just the whole situation. I mean, I just think that I'd love to see them on the field together at times. I think that would be interesting. I think they bring a different element that I think you can expose, I think, both those guys to a defense, at once. I think they're both good out of the backfield. I mean, I think Charbonnet proved that last week. And I think that was the one thing that, from the past game against Arizona, what I'd love to see continue against Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Bears and the Rams, as I name every team that they're playing on the remaining schedule for the season, is that I love the little dump downs, the little Tom Brady football where you dump it down to your back, you get 5-6 yards. It's like the easiest throw in football.
Yeah.
And I don't know why teams don't do it more.
I mean, I think that was a big part of this last game too. Geno was finding the dump off, not pushing it when he, not pushing it into tight coverage a little too much in that game. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like you can't go broke taking a profit type of deal. Like getting those, and it's tough on a defense too, because like, you get either Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet out in space, and you got to tackle those guys, and they get a little bit of a running head start, and that hurts them. It's like it's kind of an extension of the run game where you want the opposing team, as Pete Carroll used to always say, you want them to feel you, you want them to know that you've played them, and so the physicality aspect of it is nice. So. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. Like, take what the defense is giving you, get a profit, keep on schedule. This is something that they haven't been able to do all year. I think I mentioned this last week. In terms of third down, they were coming into this week dead last in average yards to go on third down. And while we're talking, I'm going to look up where they are now if they improved in that at all. But obviously, that's an aspect. That's a reflection of how they've been playing on first and second down, just not getting themselves into position to have manageable third down distance. And so, yeah, they're still last. The Houston Texans are second last. I think Seattle and Houston are having some of the same problems, just not being able to function very well on first and second down offensively.
Well, I muted myself. Well, and that's where it comes back to just those little dump downs are just so effective in throwing the ball. I mean, just getting positive yards. It's, I think a lot about Mike Holmgren when he was calling plays. They would throw early on first down just to get an easy, safe completion. I think of the air raid at times. The air raid will throw it to the backside of the backfield because with the way linebackers play. Well, you can get 3-4 yards like that, and all of a sudden now you're in 2nd and 6. And God, that's just your whole different playbook is open. I thought Geno Smith played an unbelievable game. I really did. I think he played a fantastic game. Yeah. Just taking what that defense gave him, and it's something that I hope continues here, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, totally agree. Didn't feel like he was pressing, which is nice. Obviously, it helps to get that lead, but they protected it throughout the game. Yeah, man, how we feeling about the Seahawks now? 8-5. Been a roller coaster season, hasn't it?
All of it. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just it's been a unbelievably unpredictable season for him, Danny.
Yeah,
and it's just one thing that I love about sports, but just love about these guys in particular is that each week they've just gotten better.
Yeah,
they've just improved each week. They recognized changes that they needed to make. They did that defensively. They said, hey, listen, what we did in the offseason with the linebackers didn't work. It didn't work. We got to change it up. We got to change up our linebackers. They did that. They acquire Ernest Jones. And right now that is going to go down as probably the second biggest trade they've ever pulled off in franchise history in season. Of course, right behind the Marshawn Lynch trade that they made with Buffalo. So, he's going to get paid in the offseason. Hopefully they can retain him.
Yeah.
There in the offseason. But,
he's bounced around. Maybe there's an incentive for him to like stick somewhere where he's like really appreciated. Hopefully they can keep him. In regards to the defense, I was checking the DVOA rankings this morning. Guess who's now in the top 10 on defense in DVOA? Seahawks, number 9.
All right.
It's been a journey. I tell you, I think early in the season, the defense looked good. And then they were like, oh, maybe that's just because they're playing crappy quarterbacks. Now, 3/4 of the way through the season or wherever we are, like Bo Nix doesn't look like such a bad quarterback to have faced. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think defensively they kind of fell apart in the middle of the season, but now they are back on. This looks like the defense that we were hoping that Mike McDonald could produce with the talent the Seahawks have. They're getting pressure, they're tackling better, which is so much more entertaining to watch. Witherspoon's flying around doing his thing. It feels like Reek Wolin makes a big play once a game. Julian Love makes a big play.
Oh, Love's been playing great.
Every
Secondary
game.
Job has been. I
didn't know who this guy was before the season.
Nobody did. Yeah. Nobody did, and he's been playing great. And Leonard Williams. And I just want to know. Someone needs to explain to me. Maybe we get Leonard Williams on. What has changed? How did he all of a sudden? It's not like he was a bad player last year, but I was
clicking.
I was underwhelmed. I'll be honest with you. And then when they paid him, I'm like. Okay, really? Like, is he worth it?
Right.
He's been worth it this year, and I just want to know what's changed. I mean, he's playing like Jefferson from Fast Times. It's unbelievable.
I mean, I think Mike McDonald said something about comparing him to Aaron Donald. So that's always a good thing. That means things are going well.
That works.
Yeah, I mean, it is always interesting. I think a lot of times it's there's a lot of moving pieces on a defense, and sometimes like just getting used to like what you're supposed to be doing in any given situation is a big part of it. I think the guys around you is a big part of it. He's been benefiting from the fact that the edge rushers are, they're doing really well as well. Like they're making pressure, they're creating pressure from the edges. Like you can't just focus in on Williams on every snap, in other words. And so, I think it's a little bit to do with like who's playing around him, how the team is playing, the scheme, how comfortable he is in the scheme. But yeah, he's playing out of his mind right now. I'm looking at the PFF like lineup for them. He's number 4 interior defensive tackle in the NFL right now, according to their grades. So that's pretty exciting. And obviously that's what you were hoping for when you re-signed him. I think he was also like a culture / leader type signing, like where they wanted to have a guy who's like, kind of the alpha on the defensive line, keep everybody on the straight and narrow or whatever, provide good leadership. And I think he's always been like that type of guy. So yeah, super exciting.
He's just been awesome. He's been whatever it is, whatever has motivated him this year. I don't know, maybe there's not a motivation. Normally these guys play like this when they're playing for a contract, but he's already been paid.
I know.
I think it's maybe it's just the influence or the scheme that Mike McDonald's put together for him, that it just fits him and fits the things that he does. He is just a beautiful looking athlete. I mean, he is a
tall,
monster of a
physical,
man. Fat. I mean, you go back to the touchdown against the Jets. I mean, how many defensive tackles run like that?
Yeah.
Very few, if any.
6'5", 302 is what he's listed at. Yeah, that's a big guy. It's a big dude.
It's unbelievable. I mean, their defense has just been playing out of their minds. They're going to get a wonderful test coming up Sunday against Green Bay and Jordan Love. And then I wonder, can this running game, can this offensive line who's played better the past few weeks, now they get a hold up against the Packers, who the Packers are a much different beast, right? This ain't Arizona. And they're going to get really tested here in the next 2 weeks with the Packers and the Vikings, because these are two very good defenses, and two good defenses, especially against the run.
Yeah. These are two tough teams, obviously. The Vikings, are, they're particularly scary just because they run sort of like a similar style of defense in terms of like, you never know where the blitz is coming from. You never know where the pressure is coming from. It's like really hard on a quarterback. In the Packers, they're like surprisingly good on defense this year as well.
Yeah.
Because they have like they have a defense like full of first rounders that just kind of haven't been able to click for whatever reason. It's like what we're talking about with Leonard Williams. They have all this talent on defense, but the sum is not greater than the parts. The sum is less than the parts for some reason, whatever it is. But they got, a new defensive coordinator this year. And I think he's been kind of like figuring it out. So yeah, these are going to be two really tough tests. I'm glad they're at home. But like we talked about, their home field advantage isn't what it used to be, but at least that's at home. They don't have to travel.
Well, this will be the game where you're going to, I mean, honestly, there's just going to be a lot of Packer fans there.
Yep.
There just is. I mean, and before we get into the bitching and moaning about it and how the Packer fan base is going to take the place over, just understand, even if this were 2013, I was there for the championship game. There was a ton of Packer fans for the championship game.
Yeah.
A ton.
There was tons of 49ers fans in the championship games for those as well. Yeah.
It's just their fan bases. That's a heritage fan base. It's going to travel. And I'm going to tell you, the next week, it's going to be the same thing with Minnesota. Maybe not as much for the Packers. I've talked about this a lot. There's just a lot of people from Minnesota that have moved out here.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's just it's like Minnesota of the West.
I mean, I went to PLU, which is like, what the history of the school is like. There's like a Lutheran connection, a lot of Nordic connection, and it's like a ton of people from Minnesota go to PLU for whatever reason.
My wife went there. But she's from Denver, but her whole family's from Minnesota. Minnesota, the Midwest.
It's just area. Like a Minnesota connection. It's like they have like this thing. So yeah, I definitely understand that and can see that happening.
And why, as Seattleites, we haven't adopted the cheese curds more or the hot dish, I don't understand, because they're two of the best cuisines in the history of American food.
Cheese curds.
They really are. Well, I know that's more of a Wisconsin thing.
I tried beer cheese one time.
Wonderful.
I'm trying to remember what it was like. I feel like it was exhilarating.
Good. It's beer and cheese, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, what can go wrong?
Add some bread in there.
Hard to screw that up.
And my God, we've got a full course meal. But hot dish really is one of my favorite things of all time.
What's hot dish? I don't even know.
Hot dish is just like everything thrown together in a pan. You throw it in the oven. So it's like ground beef, cream of mushroom soup, like green beans, cheese, those little fried onions, tater tots on top.
Sounds decadent. Yeah.
It's just it's comfort food.
Yeah.
But it really is American, just, fine dining.
So Midwest. Yeah.
Oh, very, very Midwest. Very Midwest.
Love that
for sure. So, I mean, they will face a stiff challenge with the Packers. That was a smooth transition from hot dish right back to the Packers. I ain't really I'm gonna praise myself for that.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, it was. But there's gonna be just a lot of people there. So before everyone bitches about it, you're not going to bitch about it if they win. That's the thing.
Right.
If they win, no one's going to talk about it on Monday. They're only going to talk about it if somehow they lose. And the thing is, like, the Bills game got a lot of attention because they were getting their teeth. Well, the second half they were getting their teeth kicked in, and then people in the third quarter just left. Said, I don't want to watch this anymore. And so what happened is, like, no Seahawks fans are there, and then it's all Bills fans.
Yeah.
And then it sounded like a Bills home game. So don't let them kick your ass in your home field, and you'll be okay.
I like it. Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Just win.
God, thanks, Al. You got to just win.
Win, baby.
I'm intrigued what McDonald's going to do, because it seems like in the last few weeks, did it with Murray, did it with Rodgers, right? Two very good quarterbacks, one a veteran, one a young guy still. Is that he seemed to have, at times in critical situations, really confused both those guys.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Leonard Williams interception, clearly confused Rodgers on that one, and then Murray a few times had confused him on some picks in that game, just confused him in general.
The Ernest Jones pick, I think in particular, you never saw him.
Yeah. Well, Jordan Love likes to turn it over. Got 11 picks on the season.
Yeah, we joke around on our show, the Ringer Fantasy Football Show, by the way. We joke around on our show.
Where can I find that show, by the way?
On Spotify. Or anywhere you get your podcast,
but really Spotify.
But Spotify, ideally, since our company is actually owned by Spotify.
Yes,
so technically a Spotify employee. So love Spotify.
Spotify.
But yeah, we joke around this about this on our show. Like basically, Jordan Love has two devils on his shoulders: Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre.
Yeah,
and Brett Favre. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is more. I don't even know if Jordan Love like actually intersected with Favre at any point in time, but like obviously growing up, we all watch Favre and
plays like him.
He's got a little Favre in him in the sense that he like will throw the ball into coverage and not he like trusts his guys and. He'll make a head shaking type of decision. Like we saw that in college too. Like it's not just in the pros. And so, but then obviously like he looks like Rodgers, the way he like moves sometimes, the way he like throws off his back foot. There's obvious connection there in terms of like just playing behind him for a couple of years that you can kind of see the Rodgers influence. So two devils on his shoulder, Rodgers and Favre. Can you imagine that combo of people just in your ear at all times? So yeah, Jordan Love, he's a really good player, but he is prone to making an interception. I think before Kirk Cousins went on his streak of horrificness, I believe Jordan Love led the NFL in picks. It's up there. He's up there with Geno. I know that. And so yeah, I mean he can turn the ball over. That's going to be a huge factor in this game. Hopefully he can create a couple turnovers, run the ball like they were running it on last Sunday, and then go from there. I think they have a chance to win. Obviously, I think the Packers are probably a better team overall. DVOA would say that for sure. But yeah, so let's see. Jordan Love, 21 touchdowns to 11 picks. Yeah.
Let me jump in because I know there's going to be people. I mean, I understand. I've read it and I understand it. There are going to be a lot of people that DVOA because we it's get thrown around. Give them a quick cliff notes of what it is, just because I know there's somebody listening or watching this right now, maybe in the chat. It's like I don't know what that is, but I'm going to go with it.
It's like a team. It's a team-wide metric that uses every play from every football game going back into essentially the 80s. I think they're still adding to their database, because they have to go back. There's certain stats they didn't have back then, and they literally have to go back and like chart games. So every once in a while you'll see FTN. It used to be Football Outsiders like asking people, do you have any VHS tapes of the Bengals playing the Giants in 1982 or whatever? Like that's the kind of like input they put into this. So basically it's a team-wide metric, and there's a lot to it, but it's basically it compares it's like an EPA type of thing, so expected points. So for every specific play from where they started,
it takes in like the factors of the opponent, what their stats are going into the game, their passing yard,
like how well they did on first, second, and third down, the efficiency. The Seahawks during the 2012 to 2015 era were number one in DVOA for like 4 straight years. You never see that. Their defense was like number one in defensive.
It's like DVOA. not every opponent is created equal,
right? So basically, it tries to add context to how efficient you are compared to the rest of the league, compared to the rest of NFL history, essentially. And some teams like I don't know if there's any this year, but like some teams will compare favorably to like the greatest teams of all time. The '85 Bears had X DVOA. So I think it's just like a way of providing some context of how good a team is rather than just like their win-loss record, because there's so many variables in football. I don't think it's like gospel, but it's definitely a useful tool to tell you kind of how strong a team is, I think, and how efficient they are.
Next time, if you next time you're sitting at your local watering hole, your dive bar, I want you to turn over to Shane over there, who's been thrown down about 19 Coors Lights and has had a couple of Jamesons, and go, hey, Shane. How about that fucking Packers DVOA, huh? Just see what Shane says to you. The fuck is a DVOA? They just look pretty good to me. No, it's just a further evidence and proof just how a team operates week in and week out. What's their ceiling, you think?
The Seahawks?
Yeah, this year.
That's a great question.
I mean, division, can they win a game in the playoffs?
Yes, I think so. If the defense continues to play like this, yes. I think this is silly and cliche, but like if the run game continues to do what they did in this last game,
it's not cliche. See, stop it. It's the truth.
It's the truth.
It just is the truth.
Being one-dimensional is hard in the NFL. That's the bottom line. It's hard to be one-dimensional. Coaches are too good. Defenses are too good. They know what's coming, and there's only so many plays you can run. And so being one-dimensional makes it really hard. And obviously, like if you get a lead, being able to run drains the clock. It keeps the ball out of the other team's hands. Like there's certain schematic or strategic advantages to being able to run, obviously. And, statistically, you're more likely to protect the football when you don't have to throw 40, 50 times a game. So
right.
there's all these variables. But basically it comes down to like being harder to defend because you're not one dimensional. So like if the run game can continue to run like they did, not even like, we don't even need to be like the best in the NFL like they were last week, just average, like that will be massive. And to me, like the defense, the way it's trending, you have a good to potentially very good offense and a top 10 defense, like that team can win in the playoffs. Like I think, and Geno Smith, like how good he is late in games, how good he's been late in games, game winning drives, pushing the ball, moving the ball down the field in key situations. I think that especially in a year like this, where there's only like a handful of really good teams, I think they have They have as good of a shot as anybody outside of like the Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, Ravens. Those teams I think look like a cut above everyone else, but I don't know. The rest of the teams there are just kind of like, there's kind of some good teams, not great teams, I think. And the Seahawks are in that group.
Are we happy for Russell Wilson?
I am.
Okay. I
tease him a lot, like he was always kind of like a goober in a lot of ways, but he was our goober for a really long time. We loved him. I think it's cool to see him having like a career renaissance. Obviously, I think the Steelers, the way they're constructed now, it's like similar to what the Seahawks were in their heyday. Defense, run the ball control, hit some explosives. Russell's numbers, I was comparing his numbers this year the other day to basically his top seasons in Seattle in terms of like 2012 to 2017. I put it in. And man, his numbers this year are really pretty much right in line, if not better than everything he was doing in that like peak era, other than he was running a lot more back then. Sack rate is about the same, which is, that's kind of like the one bugaboo I'd say for him is like he takes too many sacks, holds onto the ball a little too long. Sure. But man, he is pushing the ball down the field. He's opened up that passing game. Mm-hmm. Fields is a good runner, but he was just not very accurate, not very aggressive, pushing the ball down the field. Russell Wilson will drop it in a bucket for his guys. Yeah. And he's also making some plays out of structure still. He's still got a little bit of magic to him. Yeah. So I made this argument, I think last year, or maybe it was the year before, when he was like flaming out a little bit in Denver, that he's actually not that different than he was in his prime. If you go back to the days of the prime Seahawks, the Legion of Boom era, we were having this discussion every week. Like, God, this offense is hard to watch. God, that's frustrating. Why can't we just get a big lead? Why is this every game comes down to 13-11 or whatever? You know what I mean?
And then he pulls it out.
And then he pulls out the magic at the end of the game. This is the same thing he was doing. The only difference, a big difference, is he's not as escapable as he used to be, and he wasn't. And he's not as much of a runner as he was. But he's still got the accuracy down the field. He can still push the ball down the sideline. He's still got the leadership intangibles. I think teams especially if you look at the Steelers, they rallied around him, right, big time. And so I don't know. I think it's fun to watch. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. They get in the postseason, they make a run, and then he goes back there. And one thing is going to be team success, but then I think, down the road for him is going to be, is this third act for him going to be the final act that eventually, 20 or whatever it is, 15, 20 years down the road is going to, push him into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Penix time, you think, real quick, before we get to our fantasy football hour, our waiver questions here. Is it Penix time?
It doesn't sound like it is. I think it probably should be. Okay. It sounds like they're committed to Kirk Cousins right now. I think the coach came out yesterday and said that he's our guy, he's our leader. I don't know, man. You tell me, 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in the last 4 games.
You drafted the guy for a reason,
right?
At some point, you're going to have to pull the plug on Cousins. I mean,
things can change quickly in the NFL, even though coaches say things and then the next week they change their mind. So, I would love to see Penix play. Obviously, I don't think Kirk Cousins is like the reason you play him is so he's taking care of the football, being a good leader, not losing them games, and that's exactly what he's been doing. Over a rookie, why else would you play him? Yeah. 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I can't not good. I can't say it enough times. That is atrocious. And some of those picks were literally the reasons they lost the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm very excited to see what Penix can do in this offense. Especially honestly, look at the rest of these rookies this year. Right. Caleb Williams, I think he's definitely flashed some moments. I think he's going to be good in the NFL. Drake May, same deal. Jane Daniels looks like a star. Bo Nix, long-term starter, especially with as long as Sean Payton's still around. I think they're like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what JJ McCarthy can do last year. If Penix comes in and is good too, we got 6 new good starters from this last draft. Like that is
incredible
insane.
class. Yeah.
That would be amazing for the NFL as a product and fantasy football in particular, which I care about a lot.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of fantasy football, I mean, we're in the playoffs now. What do we got here? Can you pick anybody up, or what's the? As we're winding down the season, what advice do you have for folks?
I mean, I think the big one this week, there's a couple big running backs to pick up. The big one is Patrick Taylor for the 49ers. He's kind of a contingency pickup because we don't know exactly what's going on with Isaac Guerrero. He says he's good, and it was just precautionary, but he's not practicing yet. He won't be practicing until I believe Wednesday. Wait, yeah, that's tomorrow. And I don't know. I don't trust the 49ers when it comes to injury prognosis, like what they and players lie all the time. So go pick up Patrick Taylor if you haven't already.
All right.
Because that's important. Sean Tucker for the Buccaneers. Bucky Irving is nicked up. It sounds like they might sit him for another game just to kind of get him healthy for the stretch run. Sincere McCormick for the Raiders, one of the all-time name guys in the NFL. Sincere McCormick. He's looked really good to me. Some juice. I think they're really buying into him as the team's lead back going down the stretch. And they play the Falcons, Jags, and Saints to finish out the season. So like some pretty good matchups there for them. And then at receiver, I'm sticking with like Adam Thielen from the Panthers. He's looked really good the last 2 weeks with Bryce Young kind of in resurgence. Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman for the Browns. I mean, again, Jameis Winston, just in terms of fantasy, he's a kingmaker. Just his willingness to push the ball down the field. And then Quentin Johnson for the Chargers, Josh Palmer for the Chargers. If Ladd McConkey, my boy Ladd, if he doesn't end up playing this week, those two guys are in a good offense with Justin Herbert. That's kind of what you're looking for in fantasy. And then Hunter Henry for the Patriots is the tight end I'd probably go grab at this point. Okay,
last but not least, before we wrap it up, let's hear it. Last week, we got to put somebody on the barge. Somebody's got to go on the barge, Danny.
Who?
Got to go on the barge. Last week we put Azir Shahir on the barge.
Oh, right. Do
you have anybody in mind? I've got one person in mind.
I mean, Cousins? Are we putting Cousins on the barge?
All right, you want to put Cousins on the barge. Okay, Danny is going to put Cousins on the... That's okay.
For our boy Penix. I want to see Penix playing, man.
All right, there goes Cousins. He's on the barge.
There we go.
All right. I'm going to put A.J. Brown on the barge. I'm going to get to Brown later. Yeah.
So having some issues with his quarterback.
You're fucking winning, dude. You're winning. You're 11-2, man.
This is how receivers are, man.
Shut up.
Divas.
God. Can you? I just nothing irritates me more than that.
Yeah,
it just does. I get it. They're receivers and they're like that. I understand, but oh my God, shut up.
They're like one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now.
They're just killing. They're just winning.
Yeah.
I mean, would this guy would rather like have stats and lose? So, yeah, we're gonna put we're going to put Brown on the barge. You've got Cousins on it because you want to see Penix. So
yeah,
I love it. All right. Follow Danny on Twitter and Blue Sky at Danny B. Kelly, of course, senior staff writer at The Ringer. Check out the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. Also coming up soon, the Ringer NFL Draft Show. We're going to have to probably transition here in a few weeks and talk a little draft as we're
talking draft today, in fact.
Okay. So and what time are you doing that?
We're not doing it live today. Okay. So it'll be up tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning.
On Spotify, YouTube, and all those channels?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Danny's weekly appearance, all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery. Go visit georgetownbeer.com. Thanks, Danny. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, sir.
All right, there he is, Danny Kelly. Again, if you came into that late, check out the full show up on YouTube. Please subscribe there. Also, you can check out the audio versions on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, always up at pucksports.com. I can take the